This sitting is resumed. Honourable Member for Michael North.
Good afternoon. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, for recognizing me, and let me take this opportunity at the outset to say Happy New Year. This is the first time I'm speaking in the chamber for the 2024. I caught it right on the end of the first month, so I think I'm still in time. At least I do not wish you a Merry Christmas. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to rise and to lend my voice in support to what I think is a trailblazing and very important, even seminal piece of legislation that really stands as yet another layer of the work that our government has been doing, the excellent work, if I may say, that our government has been doing to better safeguard, protect, and also provide opportunities for enfranchisement to our people, the people of Barbados. Works like this, as significant as they are in nature and scope, do not happen, Mr. Speaker, by serendipity. We do not just wake up one day and say we're going to have the repealing of one piece of legislation that has been on our statute books for sometimes decades, and the introduction of another critical and usually improved piece of legislation. Hence why we repeal one and we replace it with a new one, because it is expected in that process that you are going to be improving and building upon the foundation that was laid by that first piece, Mr. Speaker. So we do not take this exercise as a frolic in the park. This is one that really goes through extensive deliberation. It goes through extensive and comprehensive consultation. And where we are today represents the culmination and really the next step in the journey towards making our cybersecurity posture a lot stronger than it was before. Many months, Mr. Speaker, have gone into this exercise. As I said, many stakeholders have been consulted throughout the process. Many long hours have been invested, many meetings galore, Mr. Speaker. Discussions, revisions, reworkings, drafting, redrafting. A lot has gone in to bring this piece of legislation today. And whilst some outside of these hallowed walls would mock and scoff and find reason to try to tear things like this apart, I would want to say right at the outset that there has been much discussion, much deliberation over a period of over 2 years that has really gone into bringing this legislation to bear in this Parliament today. And we understand that no piece of legislation can ever be perfect. I believe that this legislation goes a very far way to bringing us very close to the highest standard of best-in-class legislation relative to cyber crimes in the world. In fact, it is modeled on the Budapest Convention, which is already the gold standard relative to this type of legislation. So right there and then, I must congratulate the Minister and her team for bringing this piece of legislation to this Parliament today. And not only her, but I don't want to end this presentation, very brief presentation by myself, but I don't want to end this presentation without thanking the number of persons who would have participated in that lengthy journey that I just alluded to. We have the Law Reform Commission, headed by the chairman. I didn't ask for permission, but I'm using it in a positive sense. Sir David Simmons, the chairman of the Law Reform Commission, and his team, his secretariat, etc., who would have participated in this exercise. Of course, our strategic partners, the Council of Europe. We have, as I said, we have reached out to the private sphere, the public sphere, the NGO sphere, and the general public, Mr. Speaker, and all of them have had their say in helping us to craft this piece of legislation that we are debating today. And of course, it would be remiss of me, and it was good to see the members of the MISS team, some of the members of the MISS team here today. I feel like I saw my family from years ago, my long-lost family, and I guess since it's the beginning of the year, it's still in keeping with family reunions. And it was good to see some of my team from MISS headed by DPS and the head and lead for the EBC side of things, who would have been here this morning to participate and to lend their support, the physical support, to us debating this piece of legislation today. I must thank the team at MISS for the tireless work and commitment and dedication shown to bring in this legislation across many phases, through many stages, and now across the line. So let me congratulate the Minister and her team for that excellent and exceptional work. So as we move on to the meat of the matter today, Mr. Speaker, sir, we are debating two pieces of legislation that are inextricably linked, and that's why we're doing them as a cognate debate, because the Cyber Crimes Bill and the Mutual Assistance in Criminal Matters Bill, they go hand in hand. One supports the other. One allows for the Cyber Crimes Bill to have greater effect when it comes to persons perpetrating cyber crimes whilst not being in the jurisdiction that is Barbados. And Mr. Speaker, therefore, these pieces of legislation being done together makes perfect sense. But of course, any discussion on cyber crimes, Mr. Speaker, must incorporate an analysis of, some presentation on, some touching on the whole element of cybersecurity. And once again, just like the two pieces of legislation that are on the order paper today, even as they are inextricably linked, I dare say, Mr. Speaker, that cyber crimes and cybersecurity, whilst two different realities, are also inextricably linked. They also support one another. So what is cybercrime? What is cybercrime? A definition of cybercrime, it goes as follows. Cybercrime encompasses a wide range of criminal activities that are carried out using digital devices and or networks. These crimes involve the use of technology to commit fraud, identity theft, data breaches, computer viruses, scams, and expanded upon in other malicious acts. So in essence, when you use technology, when you use devices, when you use infrastructure, technological infrastructure, to perpetrate a crime against another person, against a government, against a company, that is, in essence, cyber crime. Now, Mr. Speaker, we know that this is replacing a piece of legislation that was on our statute books dating back to the early 2000s. And at that point in time, technology was very different. I often remark when I'm thinking about my children and my life compared to my children's life, I remember when I had a big back TV in my house. I remember that big back TV was black and white. And I also remember that we did not have a lot of the niceties that we have now and we take for granted. The idea of a smartphone, Mr. Speaker, I don't know, as a child, that would not have fathomed in my thoughts. But now the reality of life is such that at the touch of a button, the stroke of a pen, the click of a mouse, you can have the world's information at your fingertips. The challenge with that is that it also opens up the world to significant cyber risk. And this is where now the element of cybercrime comes in. Technology has galloped apace. Technology continues to advance rapidly. Whereas, Mr. Speaker, things used to take decades to develop, things used to take decades to be able to come to fruition, things used to take decades to be able to move from one generation to the next, to get from one version to the updated version. Nowadays, almost at the blink of an eye, one version of your phone is being replaced by another version by the next couple of months. Things are becoming obsolete almost overnight. So even as technology in terms of physical devices and the infrastructure around technology is advancing rapidly, the risk associated with digitization, digital transformation, digitalization are also increasing on a daily basis and at an exponential rate and speed. So how does this affect the average person and our businesses? Because you have a lot more digital avenues through which to connect with businesses and with individuals, with friends and family, because you have so many new avenues digitally to be able to connect and to reconnect and to provide services and to acquire services, it now means that there are many different things that can go wrong in those exchanges. So you have the risk of financial loss. For example, You have a person who, as the honourable member for St. Michael's South Central, the minister, would have led in the early part of the debate, would have indicated somebody takes your credit card. Takes your credit card information through some malicious means, some nefarious and obviously fraudulent means, and they're able to acquire your credit card information, and that person runs amok with your credit card. They purchase things from here, there, and everywhere, and then they leave you with a bill. So there's a risk of financial loss at the level of the individual, but also at the level of the business. Because we have heard, Mr. Speaker, of many businesses who having suffered some level of cyber incident, whether it be a hacking, whether it be ransomware, whether it be a denial of service, whatever it may be, whatever form it may take, we have heard of businesses that have had to restart their entire establishment, sometimes from the ground up, rebuild from the ground up. We have heard of businesses that have lost service because they were not able to deliver that service to their clientele for whatever period of time. They've lost revenues. And of course, Mr. Speaker, in addition to when it comes to financial companies, and I'm not, at the individual level it happens as well, but when it comes to corporations and financial institutions and institutions in general, when there are cyber incidents, there's also the reputational risk as well. So you will find, Mr. Speaker, that banks oftentimes do not like to disclose when they've had a cyber incident. And I'm using the very general phrase for this, cyber incident. I'm not saying when they've been hacked, because in Barbados we like to use a lot of words. They become buzzwords almost. Everybody talk about something, this get hacked, this place get hacked, this place get hacked. You know, cyber incidents take many different forms, and a hack could be as simple as somebody get your password, they never use it, it never goes anywhere. It could be that, or it could be something like a ransomware attack, which could go even further. So there are many stages of how these things can unfold. But a cyber incident can cause significant reputational risk to individual and to companies. So many companies tend to want to keep these things under wraps when they take place. But Mr. Speaker, there's some that are so big that you can't keep them under wraps. We've heard of significant cyber incidents at Yahoo, significant cyber incidents at Google, significant cyber incidents at Fargo Wells. We've heard of significant cyber incidents here locally in some of our commercial banks. We've heard of significant cyber incidents at our credit unions, some of our retail stores, and of course across some of our public offices as well. Public departments, ministries, departments, and agencies have also had the unfortunate occurrence of having cyber incidents. And this brings me, Mr. Speaker, squarely to an aspect of the Ministry of Health and Wellness's portfolio. And though I do not have direct day-to-day responsibility for the QEH, I do have responsibility for the Ministry of Health and Wellness relative to ICT and the QEH relative to ICT and all things there included. And it brings me to the fact that even the QEH, and members of the public, members of this chamber would remember that the QEH had a significant cyber breach in 2022, and that particular incident would have caused many of the services of the QEH to be down for varying lengths of time. Of course, Mr. Speaker, this was ventilated at that point in time. We would have brought in, at the time when it was in another position, we would have been responsible for leading the charge to not only investigate what would have taken place, but also to make sure that we were able to recover and to restore services at these entities. So Miss would have, at that time, led the charge with the team at the QEH, brought in some consultants from overseas and locally, and that team of individuals, that almost task force, that instant response team, would have flown into action very quickly, and we were able to restore some of the services, but many of the other services took a little bit longer to get back up and off the ground. But what happened in that case is something that I think is a lesson that we need to bear in mind when we think about cyber crimes and we think about this piece of legislation today. We must recognize, Mr. Speaker, that there is a personal responsibility, and I'm going to go into that in a little bit more detail as I get to the end of my remarks today. But there's a personal responsibility that each of us as users of technology must exercise. We must first recognize that we have it and exercise it so that we can keep ourselves as safe as possible when it comes to navigating the cyber space. QEH at that point in time, and I have been able to take briefings from my teams at QH, all the various units that report into me, and one of them was just last week with the ICT across the Ministry of Health and Wellness proper, and of course the QH ICT teams and IT teams. And we sat and we discussed some of the challenges that are there now, and we also discussed and made decisions and charted a path forward for how we're going to make sure that we revolutionize the QH, and I'll speak a little bit more about that as I go further down. But what we discussed at that point in time, what I realized, is that the QEH in particular is a mammoth operation with many moving parts. There are many departments, there are many units, there are many different sections at the QEH. And invariably, many of those units and sections, each of them have different pieces of technology that they're using. Different applications, different systems, different hardware in some cases. Mr. Speaker, there's hardware at the QEH that is very purpose-built, very specific to a function, whether it be radiology for scans, whether it be some other type of clinical assessment tool. There are pieces of hardware and infrastructure at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital that are so specific in their purpose that you can't just go into any Dell store, you can't go into IBM and buy a replacement for the infrastructure that is in place. So what happens there, Mr. Speaker, then, is that you have sometimes platforms or you have some software on these systems that sometimes become outdated. And it needs to be constantly updated, refreshed, and what we call in the industry patched, so that it will be able to have a seamless essence to it that does not allow it to be vulnerable and open to penetration. So, unfortunately, at the time, there were some areas within the QEH's network and infrastructure across all these various platforms, across all these various systems, where there were some patches, some holes, some vulnerabilities. And that is what led, unfortunately, to that incident. A lot of significant work was done at that point in time to make sure that we could bring those systems up to par, bring them up to standard, close those gaps and those holes and those patches that needed to be put in place. We made every effort at that time, and it is an ongoing job, Mr. Speaker, because this is not, and once again with cybersecurity and cybercrime, it is not something that you can take your eyes off today and turn your eyes back on tomorrow. It is something that you always have to have a watchful brief over, or watchful eye over. So we were able to bring that cybersecurity incident under control, and there's significant work and progress and advancement and maturity that has come about since then that allows us to have a lot more confidence in the systems and infrastructure at the QEH in particular, and of course by extension across the Ministry of Health and Wellness. So this piece of legislation, the Cybercrimes Bill and the associated legislation, is very, very important. As I said, Mr. Speaker, and I give the analogy of an onion when it comes to things like this, and I would even expand it to look at this entire government that is sitting before you today, Mr. Speaker. The entire executive represents one by one, person by person, a layer. And a lot of what we are doing strategically aligns one with the other, strategically fits in one with the other. And if you look at it as a standalone initiative, start-wise, if you look at it as crime prevention, just alone, I mean, you don't look at it in the context of what we're doing with sports. If you don't look at it in the context of what we're doing to revolutionize the labor market and to bring fairness therein, if you don't look at it in the context of commerce, if you don't look at it in the context of energy and what we're doing to revolutionize that, and agriculture, and how we're transitioning even our sugar industry, if you look at these things as separate and distinct and disjointed layers, then you will not get the full picture. When you bring them all together, you get your onion. Layer upon layer upon layer, bringing together into one beautiful whole. So this legislation today is yet another layer relative to our building out of our cybersecurity posture in our country. It protects our citizens. How does it do this? It protects our citizens. It should, from the end of this presentation today, and whenever we are able to conclude this particular debate in this House and pass it through the next level, the upper chamber and off the proclamation, whenever that time comes, the people of Barbados should feel a lot more comfortable that they're operating within a country that has robust, state-of-the-art, cutting-edge legislation that protects their interests relative to cybersecurity, cyber safety, and of course, crimes committed against them in the cyberspace. Legislation like this serves another purpose. It also deters the bad actors. So when there are people out there right now who are looking at Barbados and thinking to themselves, Barbados is open for business, is a free for all, and they can just walk in and do what they feel like doing because there's no real updated legislation or legislative framework that can safeguard the people of Barbados and punish them for doing wrong things. We know by the passage of this legislation, when it is so passed and proclaimed, are letting all and sundry know that this is not an easy environment to break into. And I've learned in my cybersecurity understanding that you have to harden your systems. Hardening means that you're not going to get to the state where you're impenetrable, but you're making it harder and harder and harder for somebody to be able to penetrate. Because I've learned never to think that there's an infallible system on this earth. And as much as you spend money, I mentioned companies, Mr. Speaker, earlier. I mentioned the Yahoos and the Googles of this world. I mentioned the Apples of this world. I mentioned the Wells Fargos of this world. And these are companies that have billions and sometimes trillions of dollars at their disposal. Mr. Speaker, some of these companies have some of the sharpest mind in cybersecurity in their employ. But yet, with all of that, they still have cybersecurity incidents. So this government is seeking to harden our systems, protect layer by layer our infrastructure, especially our critical infrastructure. And cybercrimes legislation such as this one that we're debating today allows us to serve notice to bad actors that this is not a plaything. Do not come to Barbados and play around. We will find you and we will prosecute you. So we're serving notice to those who would want to trouble us and cause us as a government and our people as citizens harm. It also, Mr. Speaker, serves another purpose, which is to engender confidence in our digital transformation process. And I would have mentioned, Mr. Speaker, that this is all part of the exercise. Digital transformation is one of the agendas of this administration. It has been since 2018, even with the creation of the Ministry of at that time, Innovation and Smart Technology, I think it is. Innovation, Science, and Smart Technology, I think was the proper name. It was still missed. It became missed after 2022 as well. It was still missed. But it was Innovation, Science, and Smart Technology at the time. So even with the creation of that, you can see that there was an agenda towards digitally transforming our economy and our society so that we could really and truly participate in a 21st century world. We really and truly, at that point in time, were still largely analog in a lot of our dealings, in a lot of our operations. But we took, as the government at that time, the administration and the cabinet at that time, made the determination that it would be necessary and useful to have a focus, a very deliberate focus on digital transformation. But you cannot digitally transform effectively and efficiently, Mr. Speaker, in an environment where there is no legislation to one, as I said, to frighten and to thwart off and to ward off the bad actors, but then at the same time engender confidence in your citizenry that they can, not with reckless abandon, but with a level of comfort that they can operate within this digital space that we're creating for them. So as I mentioned, Mr. Speaker, in my new role as Minister of State and Minister of Health and Wellness, there's much to be done in that area relative to making sure that our ICT infrastructure is brought into the 21st century and that we are turning the Ministry of Health and Wellness proper and we're turning the QEH by extension, which is one of the state-owned enterprises underneath this ministry, that we're turning these entities into the most cutting edge in terms of healthcare provision in our country, and of course we aim in our region and even beyond. We want to turn it into a largely digital and technologically advanced entity. We want them to be able to better serve the people of Barbados, Mr. Speaker. And we would have had our meetings recently and we have made some decisions. We are going along some courses of action, and I believe that, Mr. Speaker, in due course, in another debate and another time, I'll be able to give even more full disclosure relative to what we're doing in that space. But I have a vision, Mr. Speaker, that our healthcare system will work in such a way that a citizen will be able to go to their primary care physician, their doctor, their GP, their whatever it may be, specialist even. They may be able to go to that individual, and at the click of a button, that primary care physician will be able to access, with their permission, of course, and with their authorization, access their recent health records that are housed with the QH, the community hospital, or at any polyclinic, for example. That they'll be able to see what the last medications were that were administered and the dosage thereof. They'll be able to see when the last physiotherapy treatment was done. They'll be able to see just at the click of a button and access and authorizations being given, they'll be able to see what they need to see to better provide care, health care, to that individual who sits in front of them. I envision a healthcare system, Mr. Speaker, where a person goes into accident and emergency, and by a person just presenting maybe their Trident ID as a dish in its physical form, or even just giving the information so it can be accessed digitally, that person's record is able to be accessed. And that doctor doesn't need to come back and ask that individual their name 6 and 7 different times, or find out key information about them 6 or 7 different times in a process or during the course of a stay, an accident, and emergency. I envision a healthcare system, Mr. Speaker, that is so robust that while you are at accident and emergency and the physician sees you and orders x-rays with the radiology department, that by the time you get to the radiology department, the information is already there with them because it has been sent seamlessly and electronically over to them. The report, the instructions, the whatever, the diagnosis has already been posited within their system and they can see it. So by the time you get there as citizen A or citizen B, your information is already uploaded and your service can be immediately procured. And from there, you may be able to go to another department or have to go to another department within the same QEH infrastructure or maybe some other aspect of our healthcare network and our system. Maybe you're at a polyclinic, one of our secondary care facilities, and you need to go to the QEH, the tertiary care. All of that information now can be digitally transported ahead of you, Mr. Speaker. That is the vision that I have for the provision of health care within our beautiful country of Barbados. And we're not going to get there overnight. We're going to get there bit by bit, initiative by initiative, platform by platform, rollout by rollout, and conversation by conversation. But that is the vision that we have, and this is the direction that we want to go. So core to all of this, Mr. Speaker, is the procurement of a robust health information system. And health information systems, once again, is just really a core piece of technology, software, a platform, if you will, that will then center a lot of that information, that data that is captured on citizen A and citizen B. Every time you interact with a healthcare facility, primary, secondary, tertiary, what have you, that information is going into what we will call at that time, when we are able to procure it and launch it, our health information system. Again, in the absence of robust cybercrimes legislation, the confidence that we need our people to have in our health information system will not be there. It will be lacking. So the importance of what we're doing here today, it really sets the foundation again, another layer that has been provided to give our citizens confidence in what their administration is doing, what this government is doing, to ensure that they can fully engage in our digitally transformed Barbados. Mr. Speaker, at the center of our transformation, and particularly I now zoom in at the QEH in particular, we have grant funding that we've received from the European Union. And that right now stands at 4 million euros. And I said grant funding, Mr. Speaker, is not a loan, it's a grant funding. We have been offered this money to help us to bring our QEH into the 21st century relative to our ICT needs and our digital transformation process there. And once effectively and efficiently executed, the people of Barbados will stand to benefit from a significantly improved standard and delivery of service when interacting with that healthcare facility and, of course, those that are connected there too. As I said, it must be executed efficiently. So we have put in place a team, a project team, led by a project coordinator. We have a business analyst. We have a clinical assessment and administrative lead that is a part of that team, that management system, that structure that we have in place. And this mammoth task of bringing the QEH relative to its ICT into the 21st century is already underway, and it has commenced at pace. Bajans and Barbadians will be able, over the next 30 months or so, to see some of those transformations taking place. And I want right here at the outset of it, even as you start to hear the communications coming out, and we start to have this dialogue and this conversation with the people of Barbados, they expect some inconveniences from time to time. We're not here to make people think that everything is going to always go smoothly when it comes to digital transformation. I've been around this thing long enough now to know that oftentimes things don't go as smoothly as you would like. There will be delays, there will be setbacks, there will be detours sometimes. Sometimes you have to change course. and go in a different direction. That is all a part of the process. And I want to encourage the people of Barbados to walk with us on this journey, understanding that we're never going to do anything that is going to be detrimental to the people of Barbados. We're going to always seek to do what is in their best interests. So as with any ICT project, there may be some delays, there may be some inconvenience, but we're expecting at the end of it all that there will be an improved delivery of service. But how did we get here today? As we look at this cybercrimes legislation in particular, I think back, Mr. Speaker, to the National Cybersecurity Strategy that was piloted through Cabinet in 2022 into 2023, and that covers the year 2023 to 2026. It's a 3-year strategy. And that document, as I think the Honourable Member for St. Michael's South Central would have alluded to, it really is the overarching framework that we will use now to implement and roll out our cybersecurity implementation roadmap for this country. That implementation roadmap is well advanced in its development, and I'm sure that the Minister will be able to bring that and wrestle that to the ground and be able to bring that to the nation in very short order and in due course. There's also, Mr. Speaker, a lot of other work that has taken place behind the scenes relative to our expansion of our data center, all with the view of helping us to build another layer and to make our systems harder so that we're less vulnerable to attacks, which can happen at any point in time. But we're trying to harden our infrastructure and our systems. In addition to that, we've had many strategic partnerships. We've had many services that we've procured, all of them designed to help us to make sure that our networks are as robust as they need to be. The Minister would have gone through the bill in detail, and there are many clauses and sections in there. There are many clauses and parts of this legislation that speaks to new punishable crimes, things that would not have been captured in the existing Computer Misuse Act. And we are now introducing them in this legislation to make sure that we are providing additional cyber protection, if I can use that word, relative to our citizens. You heard the Minister speak about grooming as a crime. You've heard about revenge porn as a crime. And of course, one that we have to face and encounter, and I'm sure the Minister of Education, if she speaks in this debate when we come back, I believe that she too will speak to bullying and how it has raised its head, its ugly head, really, across many of our institutions. So many of these crimes that in 2003 and even before that, when people were now coming into contact with computers, many of these crimes did not exist at that time and at that stage of our country's development, but they do exist now. So this legislation is allowing us to be able to capture a lot more of those offenses and to make sure that we stamp them out from our civilization. So, Mr. Speaker, as I wind down and as I close, I mentioned earlier that it is really the personal responsibility of every individual to be able to operate safely within the cyberspace. Many of the incidents of cyber breaches occur by human error. In many cases, someone clicks on something that they should not have clicked on. Someone opens something that they should not open. And this is really, in many cases, the door that opens that allows then for cybercrime to be perpetuated. Unfortunately, we have to do a lot relative to training, awareness, and sensitization. I know that as a part of the National Cybersecurity Strategy, that public awareness, sensitization, and training is a major plank upon which our cybersecurity infrastructure is going to be built as we go forward. But I want to encourage persons with a few tips. There are certain things relative to public computers. We have cafes, we have all sorts of different things. Persons go from place to place in Barbados using any network that they can connect to. Sometimes they go and connect to a public Wi-Fi. We have been able to provide through the Smart Barbados and Smart Bridgetown initiative in particular, we've been able to provide free Wi-Fi in the city of Bridgetown. And that is going to be expanded. The Minister, I'm sure, will lead the charge to expand that across the other parts of the other cities and the other towns, really, the major capital areas of our country or major commerce areas of our country. She will expand that, and the team will expand that to be able to provide that free Wi-Fi to many others. But even with free Wi-Fi, you have to be careful. And of course, we're not saying that the government's Wi-Fi is going to cause you harm, But I'm saying to the people of Barbados, no matter what Wi-Fi you connect to, free or otherwise, and in many cases, it is an open public network, that also allows for bad actors to be able to sit on that same network, and thereby they could cause you some harm. So you need to be mindful of things like that. Simple things like that can help you to make sure that you're safeguarding yourself relative to cybercrime and your cybersecurity posture. Avoid downloading things from unknown applications. Of course, we get a lot of persons send us things on a daily basis. Members of Parliament, I can probably attest to the fact that we receive hundreds of messages, sometimes thousands of messages in any given week from many, many different people. And they often send documents. They can send a CV. They can send a picture of something that they're facing, a challenge that they're encountering in their home or in their neighborhood. There are many things that can come to our phones, many things that can come to our computers or devices. I'm encouraging the people of Barbados, cybercrimes legislation is strong and it is good and it is useful. But if you go and click on something that does not look right, you can also open up yourself to being the victim of cybercrime as well. So, Mr. Speaker, I give full support to the legislation that's before the House today. I support not only the cybercrimes legislation and the mutual assistance in criminal matters legislation, but I support the overarching theme of cybersecurity and the cybersecurity readiness and maturity that our government has embarked on and is making significant progress with. I believe that the people of Barbados, even as you have heard from the minister's statement through to this presentation today, must have and be ready for conversations along these lines where we can appreciate where we're going as a country. And every conversation is not going to be a comfortable one. But at the end of the day, we believe, Mr. Speaker, that this is in the best interest for our country. We have been able, Mr. Speaker, to introduce to young people and, of course, even mature people in our society, artificial intelligence training, cybersecurity training. And these have created what? Job and employment opportunities. Even enfranchisement has taken place because we have provided these platforms of training in areas now that relate directly to technology and to digital transformation. That is transforming our country. We want the people of Barbados to go with us on this journey. We know that every single time that we come and we bring something new, there may be some hesitation, there may be some reservations, but we're going to walk with you and hold your hands through every introduction and every process. So once again, Mr. Speaker, I support the cybercrimes bill that is before the House. I give it my unreserved support, and I believe that this is going to give us the strength that we need to be able to make sure that our cybersecurity position and our legislation keeps in line with 21st century requirements. I'm obliged to you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Christchurch East.
Mr. Speaker, having endured a number of comments from persons, sir, of dubious educational backgrounds, including...
Your mic is on, sir?
My mic is on, sir. I just wish to say, sir, that I wore this tie today entirely by accident. Let me just start by saying that and disclaiming. You would never have seen me, sir, in a blue and yellow tie before. And it was entirely by accident, but I'm glad, sir, that at least young people were still able to gain some inspiration.
From the tie?
But this is not any alignment with anybody
From the tie?
or any group of people. Correct, sir.
Honourable Member from the tie?
Sir, I raised to support. I raised to support the bill before this chamber, sir, and also it provides a good nexus for a discussion that encompasses both the two bills, as well as the ministerial statement from earlier. The pros of the bill and what informed the bill were very, very well articulated previously. I must commend the minister for her thorough presentation. I want to commend her for the ministerial statement. It was out of the top drawer, and I think it answered pretty much all of the questions that some either genuinely had or were posing out there in the public with malicious intent. I also wish to commend the former Minister of Mist, sir, for his presentation. So I'm going to take an entirely different slant. Sir, It was said before that somebody had, I'm not pointing fingers, had a big back TV when they were a child. And they didn't contemplate certain things, sir, and the cell phones back when the speaker was a child did not look like the cell phones now. So I go back even further than that. I remember when the actual first cell phone hit Barbados. I think Shell, the company Shell, had been the first set of people to bring them in for their executives. And I believe the top 6 or 7 people had the phones, which was almost a nonsense because all they could do was call each other. But the phones, we used to call them the brick, sir. The phone was about a foot tall, probably about that for true. It weighed maybe 8 or 10 pounds. The battery did not last more than 15 minutes. So you had to walk with the phone on a strap on your hand, sir, and then when that battery ran out, you had to rush and go and get the other battery and put it in for the next 15 minutes. And all you were able to do was to make calls. We then went past that, sir, to the introduction of car phones, where your phone was screwed into the console of your cars. In many instances, a very clumsy job, sir, where somebody with a drill put through some holes into your dashboard and screwed in the phone so you could make the calls. And people felt fussy. When your phone rang, you knew you were one of the in people. You knew you were in that select few people who actually had a phone that could ring in a car. I didn't have one. I used to be in somebody's car that had one. But sir, that is our reality. So the legislation in many instances that came before us, when the computer misuse legislation came in, I believe it was in 1993. When that legislation came in back then, sir, that legislation was done to address the issues at the time. So it even started with computer. Now when we think of electronic devices, the first thing we think of is a cell phone, not a computer. Because in many instances, your phone is your computer. The honorable member spoke about the big back TV. But I remember when the computer CPUs used to plug into the same TVs, sir. And my phone now is probably 100 times more powerful than the first computer that we ever used. When you were trying to write a program, and they tried to teach us programs when we were in class 2 and class 3, and when you were trying to write something in, right now if I want to add or subtract something or create a formula, you put it in a spreadsheet and it spits out what you want. Back then it had to be asterisk, asterisk, backslash, dot, skull and crossbones, something else. So all that to say is that the legislation that we have contemplated things back then. When devices first came in, when cell phones first came in, so they were few, far between, they were expensive to use, and quite frankly, people used them only for good. People who had a business or were conducting business or had a reason to use them. Some people had pagers where you knew that X person was trying to reach you. You saw the number come up and a very short message, and you went and made a phone call and connected with X person. But in the initial stages, all of these things were centered around business efficacy, the promotion of business, making business easier, that sort of thing. The race then, sir, was on to make phones smaller, cheaper. I remember when Ericsson, sir, brought out a phone that was probably smaller than that. You had to dial it with a fingernail because the race is on. How small can you get your phone? You had to pull the piece down to reach the voice and hold the phone between 2 fingers. That's the reality. The young people don't know about this. Somewhere there we switched back and we went back to being practical. Okay, the phone now needs to become a tablet. So how big does it need to be? How small does it need to be a phone? But how big does the phone need to be to double as a tablet? So the problem came in, as most problems come in, with mass use. As you tend to make things accessible to everyone, then the contemplations you had when you were creating a framework for select few are no longer relevant. They're inadequate. the 1993 contemplation of what a phone was or what a computer was, sir, and who was using computers and what they were using them for, could not possibly contemplate the 2024 reality where everyone, including children, have access to all of the information in the world. All of the information available to me, sir, is available to you, is available to a school child. You remember, sir, when we started practicing law, and you try to get the laws of Barbados, and the laws of Barbados cost $18,000 to purchase, and how many volumes that you had? No, sir, I cannot even tell you when last I opened a volume of the laws of Barbados. If I want to find the laws of Barbados, any specific piece of legislation, I type in keywords, and it spits it out where I can find it. So we had to change, we had to evolve, we had to move forward. In the same way that my use of the computer, when I started to work, it was literally to type out documents and to do research. That's what we used to use it for. We used to send things by fax because email wasn't there. When you wanted, sir, to use the internet, when the internet first came out, and you typed in, you heard do 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 do. Sorry, you heard a series of electronic beeps and then a disruptive, annoying noise that sometimes lasted, sir, for minutes before you could download one document. And you saw that document painfully downloading line by line by line by line. But here we are now, where so I could download a whole 3-hour movie in 2 minutes. Or I could start watching it immediately as I want. So the use of devices and technology has radically changed. That, sir, created a door, opened the door for the opportunistic-minded criminal, and, sir, for the very, very idle person. A lot of the issues we have, sir, with cyber nuisances, and I didn't want to get as far as cyber crime, sir, like the hardcore criminals who are trying to bring down a government or trying to bring down a corporation, the persons who casually, without even knowing, commit offenses. We spoke, sir, about revenge porn, and they talked about grooming, and grooming was spoken about, sir. And how many persons get a video of somebody in a compromising position? In many instances, a child being taken advantage of. And they forward it on straight to their core of friends. We all have a core of friends, sir. I have a particularly strange sense of humor. I heard there's some jokes I can't share with everybody. But I have that core of friends who understand my particular brand of humor. And I might send them something, sir, that I wouldn't necessarily send to you. Or the Prime Minister. But that's okay in between us. But that, sir, is okay in between us where it does not break any laws, or does not infringe upon the rights of someone else, or does not perpetuate a criminal activity already in progress. If it is illegal to take and disseminate images, sexual images, or depictions of a minor, then it is illegal to forward them on. All ye who forward blindly recordings sent to them run themselves into difficulty. When prosecutions start to happen, sir, in relation to cyber crimes, the excuse cannot be that I didn't take it. It was forwarded many times, so I just sent it on one more. Quite often, sir, when these things come to me, I forward them straight to the Commissioner of Police. Because we're able to identify a lot of criminal activities or criminal actors by the same videos that are circulating. If there's allegations of abuse, we send it on, and hopefully the police can track it and find out, A, whether it's in Barbados, and B, who are the actors in it, and thus bring people to justice. So it works good, I guess, in that respect. But when you forward it within a group because it is news, and you want to be that person who is always first in forwarding, and you want to be that person who is always first in posting things on IG because then you get more likes than somebody else. In many instances, you're running afoul of the law and you don't know. So one of the criteria is being, one of the considerations is being reckless as to whether something is true or not. Or not caring or investigating the truth. We are responsible for every single thing that we disseminate. From the time I press send, that message is my responsibility. I don't care, the law does not care, sir, that it first came from you to me. Then you could be charged with sending it to me. For everybody that I send it on to, I am also perpetuating the criminal activity. Sir, that addresses those who accidentally or unknowingly or maybe recklessly indulge in criminal behavior. But then, sir, we have another group of people who are posing throughout our country, sir, as objective third-party voices. Many of whom, sir, if you strip it down, they're really parts of pressure groups or special interest groups or groups with a political agenda. We let off with the ministerial statement on the ID cards. Sir, I was unfortunate enough to catch a video recording of a well-known character in Barbados pontificating and making demands to the government that if this is not done by a certain time, then they're going to do X and Y, and that the government is infringing on people's rights, and there are issues of security, that the fact is the governments are trying to deny citizens of their rights and actually revoke people's citizenship. So I have never heard more nonsense from somebody who is educated and appears to be trying to seek political office, because that was not an impartially generated message. That was a message, sir, with a political agenda behind it. And don't get me wrong. Do not get me wrong, sir. You never see me come out, or you will never hear me come out and cry somebody down because of their message. We were in opposition. When we were in opposition, sir, we had opinions on things. But before I put my name to any opinion or any video or any message that I was circulating, I researched it to make sure that it made sense and that it was true. Because I don't want anybody suing me in a circumstance where I could have kept my mouth shut. Sir, the public of Barbados put every single MP who was on the ticket of the Barbados Civil Party in a seat last election, an election before. And I understand that there are persons who believe that they must be conscientious objectors and present the other side of things. And I accept that as well. And in many instances, sir, when we are contemplating actions or the government has stated to introduce a policy, sometimes it is by some of the same comments that we're able to make adjustments or take the temperature of the public and be able to bring it back in line with what the public wants. So there is a place for those persons who are objectively operating to the good. But when the aim, sir, is fear-mongering and the spreading of misinformation, then we put ourselves in a problem. And these persons also need to know that laws exist. You cannot say whatever you want just because you have a platform to say it and because nobody has bothered to sue you yet. Sir, the threats were made against the minister and the government that if this ID was not hauled back and any legislation, the cybercrime legislation was not put out to joint select committee, that there will be a legal action to enforce the rights of citizens. Obviously, sir, that person is completely ignorant as to the law. You can't just bring, well, you can. You can sue anybody for anything. You're unlikely to be successful and would be ill-advised to bring an action unless you can prove some harm. What is the cause of action, sir? Who is the injured party? What have they lost? These are things that did not matter to the person. It was just because this is another progressive step by the government. Let us do what we can to disrupt and make ourselves look good. So I don't have an issue with the person. I don't have an issue with the person. I have listened to the person, and every once in a while, sir, the person seems to stumble onto something credible. So I don't have an issue with them trying to assist or trying to present the voice or represent the interests of persons where such interests validly exist. But to sit down and spew, sir, what comes across often against the government, against ministers, against anybody who stands in their way, sir, would run them afoul of the new cybercrime legislation. One of the tenets of which is that what you put out, what you circulate, you must actually believe. I rose to speak, sir. I didn't, quite frankly, after the first two excellent presentations, there was not much more I could do in explaining the intricacies of the bill, what informed the bill, or how it went. But I think it's also necessary for people to understand the application in a real-world context. What is the application? How does that affect what it is that I am doing? A very good point, before I move off of the IDs, sir, a very good point in relation to IDs was made. You don't have to go for the ID. If you choose to not go for the ID, that is your business. At some point in time, that ID is going to shackle up, as all of them has. If you use it, it starts to peel back, dirt gets under the thing. After a while, the picture is actually exposed. When you can no longer use that ID because it literally can't be deciphered, you can then make your decision as to what your next course of action is. No ID or trading ID. It's as simple as that. You may wish to limp along on your driver's license or your passport for what it is worth. But quite frankly, sir, if 90% of Barbados is using one thing, eventually you're going to find yourself on the fringe, not by anything the government has done, but simply that is just the evolutionary process at work. I understand, sir, that there's some people who don't trust technology. I understand, sir, that there's some people who are accustomed to doing things the way they are. But in this very interesting spin, the pensioners and that group, the ones we were most concerned about as to being resistant to the uptake of the new ID, are the head ones who've embraced it and jumped and gone ahead. Who've embraced it and jumped. The head group that we always make the provision for to not take up the technology are the principal people who have embraced it full-heartedly. Sir, somebody came to me and said, Abrams, I want to show you something. Abrams, where's your phone? I pulled out my phone. And they said, look, Abrams, scan that QR code. Just put on your camera and thing, scan it. So I scanned it, and it pulled up a picture. It pulled up name XYZ, ID number, whatever, right? Look at this, Abrams. Look at all this information you see in here. He said, what's the problem with it? He said, anybody could pull all of my information off of this. He said, you got a driver's license? I said, yes. I said, take it out. And they took it out. I said, show me anything that is on the face of your driver's license, right? That is different from on this card. Anything on this card, this new card that's not on your driver's license, pointed out to me. And they couldn't. I said, you are jumping on a bandwagon. There's nothing anybody can do with this card as it stands that they cannot do with your driver's license or your ID. Nothing. And that point needs to be driven home. There is nothing as it stands now on that Trident ID card so that we cannot get off of your driver's license and your national ID card. Father forbid, sir, that you have a passport, because then we get other things that color the eyes. And what about mother's maiden name? So people need to discern for themselves what is idle noise, what is politically motivated mischief, and what is genuine concern. Sir, the fact that the minister said, you know what, we actually don't even need to force people anymore, they don't need for it. There's no need for us to have a cutoff day anymore because, quite frankly, everybody's taking it up. If people want to be the last persons holding out, then feel free, go brave. But let it be because you have a particular reason why you don't want to do it. Not because you're listening, sir, as Shakespeare said, to the tale told by the idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. At some point in time, people need to call out certain things, sir. I don't have a difficulty with political opposition. I don't have a difficulty with people trying to help people who are not me or not from my side of the table. If your heart is pure, go ahead. If your interest is the people, go ahead. But stop making mischief to stand behind every progressive move that the government is trying to make. I will finish, sir, with two things. So, sir, I will say this. Our ID in its current form was for a year dot. For as long, I think, sir, as it was a Barbados ID, it was in some form of laminate. Let you pick yourself up and leave Barbados and try to present that ID anywhere else. The people are actually going to think it is a clumsy, bogus document. Not even a good one. They're going to think, wait, you really going to do better in trying to forge an ID card? It is not accepted anywhere else. Why do you want an ID card that only helps you, sir, in cashing a check, but can do nothing else for you? And you cannot use it when you leave this country. We never see Bajans. Bajans do not, we're not that people. We don't jump on bandwagons, sir. Bajans do not wholly subscribe to nothing. There is always the one or two or three or four or half who are doubting until they see it in action. I have never seen Bajans so completely exceed our expectation on taking up anything as we have with the Trident ID card. Never seen it. So I will ask those particular voices to take the tune from the rest of Barbados and let this one pass. Just leave this one alone and shut up. Right? Take your tune from the rest of Barbados. Back when the Computer Misuse Act was done, sir, in '93, back then we would watch Star Trek. And you would see Captain Kirk stand up, and a screen come down, and the Klingon Emperor is there on the screen talking to him. And we said, that would never happen. Back then, sir, we had the same ID that we have now, the old ID. Right? We saw Dr. Spock, sir, with a handheld device walking down on planet X, looking at his device, trying to find a geolocated spot. And we said that would never happen. Back then, we were using the old ID. Sir, we have electric cars that talk to us. When they had Kit and Knight Rider back in 96, we said that would never happen. Back then, we were using the old ID. Sir, we have no cars that park themselves. We have phones that could take us to anywhere that we want to go. We can open this here and look and see the face of our loved one in China and talk to them in real time. We're back in 97 when you wanted to reach, when my father wanted to speak to his sister in Nigeria, you'd have to call Bartel and say you want to do a message and using initials because every letter was a cost. And you make that message as brief. Somebody will find out their mother died, sir, by high D. Mom dead. Stop. And that's the end. That's it. That was back then when we were using this exact same ID we are trying to move past from. Sir, if we have gone further in our contemplation than we ever could have, we have, in the last 10 years, we have made a greater advancement in technology than in the history of the world prior to that 10 years. Electronic banking, electronic research, artificial intelligence, ChatGPT. The Prime Minister showed us something a day where she said, draft a speech by Mia Motley using climate change, something. And in about 2 minutes, sir, she read the speech that was there. That I know the Prime Minister's style. Well, I couldn't believe the Prime Minister didn't write that. That just by giving certain keywords, a whole speech was drafted. That is where we are now. Why then do we want to insist in holding on to the things that tie us back then and were relevant back then to all of that analog stuff when we were fully digital and 4K and 5K and all sorts of other Ks? It just doesn't make sense. It is your right. All Bajans have their rights, fundamental rights. You can choose. You can choose to make a decision injurious to yourself if you want. That is your right. You can choose to hold on, sir, to something that is obsolete and irrelevant and will phase out just by the natural effluxion of time and the destruction of the material from which it was created. Or you can get with the program like 99%. I don't want to misquote the figure. I think it's 88%. 88% of Barbadians have done. Get with the ID that makes sense to you. Walk into the bank, sir, with one piece of plastic as opposed to a whole folder with all your bank statements, your letter from Light and Power, your letter from Digicel, your letter from Water Authority, your this, your that, your next. Why would anybody choose that? 1966 to 1993 way of doing business when we could do what is commonplace now for 2024. So, sir, just to tie it all in, the point I'm simply trying to make is this. Something as simple as that, the misinformation surrounding that, the agenda that drives the publishing of false information or fear-mongering, sir, are things that the Computer Misuse Act contemplates. Barbadians need to be very aware. We need to be careful with our passwords. We need to be careful with our sources of information. We need to be careful with what we send around and to who. And we need to manage ourselves to not fall victims to persons who talk pretty and who are trying to steal your password. Or talk pretty and trying to get you to press this button to get into your bank account. It is the way of the world. We, the government, through this, are trying to protect you as much as we can. We are trying to move Barbados to where it has to be. We are not going to get there. It does not serve our country well to try to take small steps to get ahead of the curve. Where we want to position Barbados is as a leading country in the Caribbean. Where we want to position Barbados is as a place where things work. Best in class is what the PM always says, best in class. That's what we want for Barbados. We cannot keep holding ourselves back, sir, on the things that don't make sense. Why use something now? Why want to stop a 2024 piece of legislation? Why want to stick it up when it's relevant for now? And instead you want us to use the old ID card and stick with the 1993 piece of legislation, sir, from when we watched Spock on the planet, and we said that would never happen. Sir, I fully commend the legislation, and I wish to congratulate everybody who had a hand in it, and I once again, I can finish as I started. I want to commend the Honourable Minister for clearly explaining where it really is at with the Trident ID and putting an end, hopefully, to all the misinformation that is swirling there. With those few words, sir, I entirely support the legislation. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that we postpone further consideration of this bill.
The question is that further consideration of this bill be postponed. All those honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. Further consideration of this bill is postponed.
Order number 11, sir. In the name of the Honourable Minister in the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs, to move the second reading of the African Export-Import Bank Bill 2024.
Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise to move this debate, which I think, sir, is particularly important because, as you are aware, sir, the government of Barbados, having come to office in May of 2018, sir, we determined that we were going to set about a path of reclaiming our Atlantic destiny. And part of that path, sir, requires us to be able to not just make substantive connections with our brothers and sisters across the African continent, but to start to build relationships, sir, and partnerships, which we believe, sir, will be important for the long-term economic stability and growth and provisional opportunities, sir, for all of our people, but particularly, sir, our young people. And as part of that strategy, sir, as you are well aware, and I shall take the opportunity just to remind the country, sir, Barbados established 2 missions, one in Ghana and one in Kenya, sir, to be able to give expression, sir, to that openness, sir, and for us to be able to reclaim that Atlantic destiny, notwithstanding, sir, as you know, that next year will be 400 years since the settlement, which is perhaps the politically correct term, sir, of Barbados. And to the extent that we have, over the last 400 years, been given a diet, sir, as to news and information in relation to what happened during slavery, colonialism, and the like, sir. We felt that as part of creating a new national consciousness, sir, which, as you would recall, sir, that was one of the very critical things that we had indicated, that as part of building out Barbados, having a new national consciousness required us to think differently about ourselves. And certainly, sir, as we, as a government, want to be able to demonstrate, we have to think very differently, sir, about how we engage the world. And the strategy to engage with countries in Africa in a substantive way, sir, is part of what has led us to this point today. You would also recall, sir, that during the middle of the pandemic, Barbados was able to join forces on the African Medical Supplies platform, sir, to gain critical resources when the rest of the world, sir, were not looking at us in the same way as they normally do, sir, in an exploitative manner. They were looking after themselves. And it is really with the solidarity, sir, of the countries in Africa who had designated, sir, through the African Union, that CARICOM represents the 6th region of Africa, given, as I said, sir, the history over the last 400 years. And that they too were looking at the Caribbean, sir, with a specific path, strategy, of being able to bring us closer together. And so this bill, sir, here today, titled the African Export-Import Bank Bill, sir, 2024, is really to ensure that, one, having agreed in September of 2022, sir, when we had the first Afro-Caribbean Investment Forum right here in Barbados, sir, that we were able now, sir, to give expression to the fact that having agreed the partnership with the African Exim Bank, which is really to facilitate, sir, trade, not just within Africa, but certainly as we want now to build out opportunities for export and to build this economy and to forge stronger relationships, sir, with countries in Africa and with businesses in Africa, sir, and with individuals in Africa, that this bill today, sir, represents an opportunity for us to be able to concretize, sir, in a real sense, and further strengthen the roots that we've already set down, sir, in building this relationship out. Now, you would recall, sir, that at that point, there were just about 750 odd persons that traveled from Africa, sir, to Barbados to attend that conference, and and about 400 people that came from the region, sir, to participate in the conference right here at LASC. And it really spoke to the fact, sir, that a lot of work had been done initially by us, Barbados, to be able to bring the relationship closer. And therefore, with the establishment of the office, sir, of the African Export-Import Bank right here in Barbados, physically last year, it was important, sir, that as we put the processes in place, that we set them up, sir, in the same way that the Caribbean Development Bank has an office here, sir, that the UN agencies and all of those who operate have that similar privileges and immunities, sir, that all the diplomatic countries who have presence in Barbados equally, sir, are treated in a certain way. We felt that it was important that the African Export-Import Bank be treated, sir, in the same way, so that we're able to give legitimacy, for lack of a better term, sir, legitimacy to how we see our engagement with Africa. And it is through these means, sir, that this bill is here this afternoon to be able to put the legal framework and protections, even though Cabinet has already agreed the operational mandate for the bank's presence in Barbados. And let me remind Barbadans, sir, that the bank's presence in Barbados, we are very grateful to have them here, but they are here to be able to expand business, not just in Barbados, but business across CARICOM, sir, as well as between regions. And therefore, the things that the traditional banking sector, sir, would not normally do, sir, the expectation is that this facilitation and the facilitation of financing to be able to move goods and services, and certainly as it relates to the digital space, as we had a lot of discussion today, that the creation of content through the African Creative Nexus and the financing of the production of such content, sir, I am sure that most persons in Barbados might be aware of that very popular song called Calm Down by Rima, sir. That is the kind of financing that is available for artists, for designers, sir, for persons within the music industry, sir, you name it, under that platform, that we would love to be able to see the similar types of success being financed through this. And therefore, this is really, sir, an important bill this afternoon, which I believe is historic, sir, because it is the first time that we have looked at ourselves, sir, on the other side of the mirror, so to speak, and given expression, sir, on equal footing as any other institution that has come, any other international institution that is present in Barbados, to be able to give the same treatment, sir. And therefore, as Barbadians, I want to say to people that we must look to work more strategically, sir, with the African Export, the Afri-Exim Bank, sir, as it's named for short, to be able to build out, sir, partnerships to drive growth and innovation in the economy. Now, sir, much has been said about as you would recall, sir, last year I brought the resolution here in relation to the financing for COMI in response to the fact that we are building out the infrastructure at the Oval in preparation for the T20 World Cup in June. And it is through the African Exim Bank, sir, that we felt strategically that we could work with in order to be able to do for us something which is quite rich to all of our hearts. And I'm sure that given the experience over the weekend, sir, people will expect that the West Indies will deliver similar performances, sir, in June, right here in Barbados, sir, which will be something phenomenal. But it requires, sir, us being able to work strategically with our partners, which I'm proud to say, sir, that the African Exim Bank stepped up and allowed us to be able to have access to those resources to deal with not just the infrastructure at COMI, but to be able to respond very quickly for what really, sir, is something that the Caribbean, sir, the Caribbean is known for. So I believe, sir, that decision to be able to allow us to put in that investment is consistent, sir, with not just the establishment of the office in Barbados, but with the establishment of the collaboration between the African Union and CARICOM, sir, and the Afri-Exim Bank as a financial intermediary, sir, to make things happen. And therefore, this government, sir, is proud to be able to say to all Barbadians that this bill coming before the chamber today, sir, is important, it is consequential, and we now must open up our minds, sir, to think differently about how do we engage strategically with the African continent to be able to build out greater relations. As you know, sir, the Republic Bank they bought a bank in Ghana, sir, a few years ago, and therefore there are already opportunities now for us to be able to use that as a link, just in the first instance, sir, to be able to do more business in Ghana. I know our commercial attaché, sir, which most of Barbados knows very well, Mr. Phil Phillips, sir, forgive me, but everybody knows Phil, sir, as a go-getter. And since being stationed in Ghana, sir, Phil has been making things happen, sir, for Barbadian businesses. And therefore, as he works not just in Ghana, but to really, sir, open up relations across West Africa, and with our representative in Kenya to do the same, sir, in the East, it is really through the intermediaries like the Afri-Exim Bank, sir, that the financing can be put in place to be able to unlock opportunities, to create jobs, sir, for our people, that I believe, sir, will be consequential for how we build out the economy. And therefore, it is not just here to lend money to government, sir. It is here to provide financing for people who want to do real business, people who actually want to bring expression, sir, and to reality the things that are in your mind. But the basis upon which you have to do that, sir, is to be able to find the partners across the continent in whatever sector you're working in, sir, to be able to deliver. And therefore, I believe, sir, that the presence of the Africa Exim Bank is consequential. The government has demonstrated that we too will participate as required with the Africa Exim Bank. I would love, sir, the creatives, which I know, sir, through the National Cultural Foundation, through Export Barbados, that they too are working with the special technical assistance programs to be able to find the areas where they can develop, sir, their samples, such that when they go to these expos, sir, and they get the orders for 100,000 of something, sir, 50,000 of this, they can call the manufacturer wherever they are, sir, and deliver those orders rather than going and showing wonderful things at expos, sir. But then when you get the order, you're coming back to Barbados, sir, trying to figure out where you can put this thing together. And therefore, it is that kind of intervention now, sir, that I'm saying to the creatives across Barbados. Let us ensure that you get the right information, the specific types of technical assistance, to be able to unlock those opportunities. Because it doesn't make sense, sir, us taking people to go to a fashion show, sir. We get wonderful rave reviews, but then we simply cannot deliver. And therefore, rather than put the cart before the horse, sir, let us step back, pause, go and find the appropriate manufacturer to source the raw materials, to do the processor and work with it using the global supply chain, so that with the financing in place, sir, through entities like the African Exim Bank, sir, that when you get the order for 100,000 or whatever it is you're making, or whatever the order is, sir, because it is quality, you're able to deliver because you have the financing in place to purchase in bulk. You know who your manufacturer, the sampler are, maybe wherever they are in the world, sir, and that you can deliver the order on time such that we are able to build out and see growth, sir, in the economy. Because at the end of the day, sir, if we are not able to make these things happen, and when I say we, sir, I'm talking about individuals now within the creative space, they now must see things differently. So I know that in the past, sir, we've all grown accustomed to going on trips and is having a nice time. But it is time now, sir, if you're talking about growth, it is time to reorient the process and utilize the facilities that are available through NCF, through Export Barbados, in collaboration, sir, with the Africa Exim Bank, to be able to change the I think forever, sir, the lives of ordinary Barbadians, and I think, sir, of Caribbean people, as a number of countries, as you know, sir, have signed on to the partnership agreement with the Africa Exim Bank in order to be able to leverage these opportunities. So I'm saying to Barbadians, let us not do things as we did them, sir, for the last 30, 40 years. We have established a credible relationship, sir, with the African Exim Bank in order for us to be able to unlock opportunities for growth, and therefore it is something that we want to say to all Barbadians. Have the confidence that the government has in relation to establishing the missions in Ghana and Kenya. Let us leave out, sir, if you like, the disinformation and misinformation has been fed to us, sir, for 400 years about where we came from, such that we know for ourselves, sir, what the lie of the land happens to be. And I just want to take the opportunity, sir, to mention that the African Exim Bank, sir, has a specific platform that if I want to know something about you, sir, and let's say, sir, you are a business in Nigeria, I can access the information about your company, sir, and your principles to do the necessary due diligence, sir, in relation to know, well, you are a bona fide person to be able to help remove the vagueness and opaqueness that people have planted in our minds about doing business, sir, in Africa. And it is important to understand that through the Afri-Exim Bank, these are the types of opportunities that we want to be able to unlock so that people will know that they're doing business with legitimate people, sir, being able to exploit any opportunity that may exist. And therefore, that is available through the Afri-Exim Bank, which I would encourage, sir, all Barbadians to be able to do, because others will be doing it, sir, and we do not want to let any opportunity, sir, pass us by. Equally, sir, with the payments platforms, as you know, sir, we've been having, and the region have, with respect to correspondent banking and a whole range of issues in the past, there's a similar facility there because, as you know, sir, we all establish our foreign exchange relationships with the North, with banks in the North. And to the extent that there's an alternative, sir, the African Exim Bank has a platform through which their payments platform that allows us to be able to do that. So as I mentioned earlier, sir, in the same way that we have benefited through the African Medical Supplies platform during COVID for the bulk purchases and continue to benefit in that space, sir, because of scale, we must recognize that as small states now, we must work more productively and collaboratively with our brothers and sisters in the continent to be able to unlock opportunities. But this is where we are at, sir. Things are on the way, and I look forward, sir, to seeing substantial investment flowing between Barbados and the continent, between CARICOM and the continent, in order for us to be able to bring to reality the objectives of the program, sir, the Barbados Economic Recovery Transformation Program, because growing the economy is not just about doing things within the 166 square miles. We really must ensure that there are opportunities for us to be able to do more outside of Barbados, and this is a facility that allows us to be able to do trade easier, to have trade financing in place, because when we look at it, sir, none of our commercial banks do trade finance, really, to speak of, sir. And therefore, there are elements as we build out the partnership with Guyana and Suriname. As you know, sir, CARICOM set a very clear objective in relation to reducing the food import bill for the region by 25% by 2025. We have agreed to do the food terminal here in Barbados. As you know, sir, there's been significant discussion about the ferry service that will move not just goods, but people across the region. And therefore, the type of financing within that context of trade, sir, and moving people and the like is important. Now, sir, at a personal level, I honeymoon, sir, in Cairo, and beautiful place. And I am yet to go back. This is in 2007. I'm yet to go back to Africa. But my wife has said to me, sir, that for her 50th birthday, she wants to go to Ghana. And I said to the honourable member for St. Michael West Central that the Ministry of Tourism, as we know, sir, we've been negotiating about getting some flights between Barbados and Africa. And it certainly will be a wonderful dream, sir, to be able to fly directly from Barbados to Ghana if we can get those negotiations settled, because part of how we are working together through the African Exim Bank, sir, in coordinating and working with the airlines to be able to support that, sir. It is something that I know that Barbadians and Africans, whenever they come to Barbados, they always complain, sir, that they have to go up to England to come back down. And therefore, it would be my greatest wish, sir, to be able to fly from here to Ghana. And I know that the ministry is working hard with the authorities to be able to get that in place. But even if that is not ready in time, sir, it is important that all of us understand that we now must start looking to the east, sir, to have different experiences, and that we must welcome, sir, we must welcome people from Africa in our midst, because in order to build out this economy, sir, in different areas of expertise, as you know, sir, we have welcomed, certainly during the pandemic, sir, nurses from Ghana, sir, within our polyclinic system, within the hospital itself, sir, which is testimony, sir, to the fact that there is capacity there that Barbados can benefit from, but there's also expertise that Barbados could potentially export across Africa in various areas that we now need to utilize. And therefore, we are leveraging, sir, the relationship and the contacts that the African Exim Bank, sir, has brought to the table to allow us to be able to take advantage of, sir. And therefore, it is important that all Barbadians, sir, and I repeat it, all Barbadians, sir, just get on board. Get on board, you find the information that you're looking for, as I said, sir, through the due diligence platform. Connect with people, sir. Make sure that they're legitimate business people wherever they are, sir, because given the previous conversation, the previous debate, sir, it is important that we know who it is on the other side, sir, that we are engaging with. And therefore, that is particularly important if we are going to build out the economy, if people are going to create new opportunities, if young people are going to be able to give expression to the talent that they have in a way, sir, that is not limiting because Barbados is only, sir, there are only so many nightclubs, sir, or fetes, or breakfast things that you could do, sir. But when I see that youngster, sir, Rima, in Paris and all across Europe, sir, and he's standing up in the front of thousands of people, sir, singing his song. He does not even have to sing his song. The audience just pays, sir, to sing his song. You understand? And that is the kind, sir, of global presence that our creators can have, but you need the financial mechanisms, sir, to be able to get out into the marketplace in a way that makes sense. And therefore, the African Creator Nexus, sir, which the African Exim Bank has made available $250 million US, sir, made available for the region. So it's not just for Barbados, for the region. So I'm saying to creators in Barbados, sir, saying to creators, through the NCF, through Export Barbados, get engaged. Let us work together to make sure that we too can create some of those global hits on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and all these types of things, such that Bajan creativity can be out there. But equally, sir, whether the fashion designers, the web designers, all of those creators within that space, especially as you know, sir, in Nigeria, in terms of Nollywood, sir, the investment in film, and I know that we have a very budding film industry here. We've set up a suite of incentives. Those are the kinds of things that can spur investment, sir, in Barbados and outside of Barbados, for that matter. But we have to be confident and comfortable, sir, that we can leave Barbados and go and liaise with people from North Africa to Southern Africa, sir, from west to east, to be able to take advantage, sir, of said opportunities. So I say that, sir, because that is a dedicated set of funds that are available to be able to unlock investment within the creative space. We will do agricultural stuff, we will do the regular stuff, sir. We can do all kinds of things within the private sector, given the $1.5 billion that's available generally for CARICOM through the Afri Exim Bank, sir. All of those other things will be done. But there's a dedicated $250 million US, sir. US dollars. That's available, sir, for our creative industry to be able to access, sir, in order to promote their works, to monetize their work, sir, within a global framework. And if we can find a few examples, sir, who could be just like Rima or better. That is the kind of output that I believe is important. Now, sir, as you know, with every industry, there's always somebody at the top, but there's a number of supporting acts, if you like, sir, below the musicians, the songwriters, sir, the song people, the light people, all of those things, sir. There's space for everybody, sir, within that creative nexus. And therefore, this bill here before the chamber, sir, to pass to give effect to the presence of the African Export-Import Bank, sir, is here for us to be able to say to the world that Barbados is definitely on its path, sir, to reclaiming our Atlantic destiny. We will continue to work collaboratively to within the economy itself, sir, through the various connections, to be able to do things differently. And one of the areas, sir, that is being done very differently, especially in Kenya, sir, is the payments systems, which, as you would appreciate, sir, Kenya, but especially across Africa, usually would have geographic issues with people being able to conduct business. And in Kenya, in particular, with the solution of the M-Pesa, they've been able to enfranchise millions of people, sir, almost 44 million people using, of 44 million of approximately 47 million people use M-Pesa, sir, across Kenya. And that's something that, as the honorable member spoke earlier about the adoption of the ID card, I want you to appreciate that if you don't take up the technology and use the technology, sir, then the benefits that you would like, that will attain accordingly just will not be there. And therefore, you have to be able to take a leap of faith in some instances, sir, where, and it's not necessarily as a leap of faith, but the reality is you must understand, and I think the honorable member did a very good job of explaining to people what is already available, and all that you're trying to do now is to actually, sir, make it more secure for you to conduct your business as opposed to what was there before. But I make that point in the context, sir, that Barbados has already, similarly, in relation to our payment systems, last year we launched the real-time payments systems. Things are evolving, sir. We expect the business community to be able to roll out a number of solutions for people to pay. A number of young people and young entrepreneurs, sir, will be able to do their business online, sir, much easier within that space, and therefore the rollout of those types of systems is going to be absolutely important, sir, if we are able to make that substantive difference in relation to when people are paid, how they're paid, and how they conduct business, sir, either in Barbados or outside of Barbados. But critically, the access to that type of data is important for people to determine your creditworthiness, if you like, sir. And therefore, that is part of how we see working strategically together to ensure that things can happen seamlessly between not just what happens in Barbados, but utilizing the payments platform that the African Exim Bank has to ensure then that payments from the African continent to Barbados and CARICOM, and vice versa, sir, can happen seamlessly. Now, sir, the provisions of this bill, as it speaks to, gives authority for government to borrow any sums from the African Exim Bank, the conditions upon which that is here, which is relatively standard, sir, for most banks like this. In terms of the presence of the office here, and in the same way, sir, just so that there's no doubt, sir, the same way that employees of the CDB or employees of the IDB or any other financial institution of a multilateral nature, sir, get certain privileges and immunities, sir, the officers of the African Exim Bank, sir, will enjoy the same immunities and privileges as any of those other institutions. And therefore, to the extent that that is here, the similar provisions are made for those officers, sir, in relation to their conduct in Barbados. And to the extent that, and as schedules to the bill, sir, just very quickly, the first schedule speaks to the agreement between the government of Barbados and African Exim Bank concerning the location of the office, which as here, that was signed on the 4th of August last year between the Prime Minister and the President of the African Exim Bank, Professor Benedict Orama, sir, is in the first schedule. And then the second schedule speaks to the establishment of the partnership agreement between members of states of CARICOM, as well as the African Export-Import Bank, which was signed, sir, on the 1st of September of 2022 at the Afro-Caribbean Investment Forum, which was held here at LESC. And so, sir, this, I believe, is particularly important as part of how we reclaim our Atlantic destiny, create a real and substantive connection, sir, with the government and people of Barbados through the Afri-Exim Bank and the whole of Africa, and to bring real, sir, our expression to be able to not just opening the 2 missions in Ghana and Kenya, but I hope soon, sir, as we grow the economy, sir, that we can open up more missions across Africa to be able to accelerate, sir, our connections, our prospects, and that when we get those flights, as I told the Honourable Member for St. Michael West Central, that the flights that we want to have directly coming from Africa to Barbados, or the Caribbean for that, Barbados in the first instance, sir, that we are able now to be able to bring true expression, not just to being able to move voluntarily, sir, because as you know, sir, 400 years ago, we were the first stop. But we weren't the first stop because we wanted to be on the boat. But this time, sir, as part of our strategic objectives in terms of not just growing the economy, but getting closer South-South cooperation, it is important that we determine how we move, when we move, where we move to, sir. And therefore, it is those discussions that I know our governments and the agencies supported by the African Exim Bank are supporting to allow us to be able to bring our people, sir, our brothers and sisters, closer together. And that is something, sir, that I look forward to coming to fruition. We know that whatever happens, sir, we will have to sustain. Governments will have to sustain initially until the traffic is able to support it. But it is something, sir, that if we do not do it, sir, nobody's going to do it for us. And therefore, it is the kind of investment that we must make as we bring our countries closer, as we bring the regions closer, in order to be able to bring to reality that idea, if you like, sir, that I know the Honourable Member for St. Michael East would be very proud because as a Garveyite himself, sir, he is long in the tooth in relation to the objectives of what Marcus Garvey set out to do just about over 100 years ago. And the president of the African Exim Bank has shared that same philosophy, sir, so to our Prime Minister. But of course, it is people, sir, taking advantage of the opportunities that will create the demand, sir, to allow these things to happen. And therefore, we must start the journey. And therefore, the presence of the African Exim Bank, sir, here is one first step. The making of the deals, the doing of the deals, sir, the connection of people, provision of information, sir, I believe will close the gap which will allow us to be able to deliver on this. And so, sir, with those very few words, I would beg to move, sir, that this bill be read a second time. I'm obliged to you.
Second.
Honourable Member for St. Peter.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I do not propose to be very long, but I thought I needed to say a few words from the perspective of the place that I represent and the people who sent me here. The first organized uprising in this country in pursuit of self-determination. The first organized attempt to throw off shackles and actually to reclaim that Atlantic destiny happened in Spikestown, happened in St. Peter. And the person who led that organized or that planned revolt has been described in the historical account as an elderly Gold Coast Negro. In other words, what the probably racist scribe was trying to say was that he was an elderly gentleman born on the continent of Africa. And it is from that perspective that I really share the sentiment of the importance of the establishment of the Afri-Exim Bank in Barbados. I think, Mr. Speaker, that our country, under the leadership of this party in government, is demonstrating a maturity of thought and a willingness to act in support of that thought, one that we have not seen in the past. There's a tradition in our country, Mr. Speaker, of referring to Africa or seeing Africa somehow as backward. Yeah, there's talk about savages. There is a reluctance by too many, and I'm not saying a majority, but a reluctance by too many Barbadians to connect themselves with the continent. And so I come into contact from time to time with Barbadians who will say to me, I am not African, I am a Barbadian. But they will turn, or we will turn, and you will see somebody walking up the street. And the comment will be, without regard to where the person was born, that person is a Chinese, or that person is an Indian, or that person is a Syrian, or that person is a Lebanese, without any idea of where the person was born. And that says to us, Mr. Speaker, that the connection that we ought to have is all too often missing. Now, in this place and outside of this place, I try very hard not to blame people for things that I consider even to be wrong, at least not to beat them up. And I'm particularly careful not to do it in this place. I believe that the reactions of many of my brothers and sisters, my country people in this country, a lot of it is a result of the impact of that same near 400 years of colonialism, racism, and all that came with the transatlantic trade in enslaved people. I do not think that we can discount what 400 years can do or has done to the psyche of our people. And I, Mr. Speaker, am firmly of the view that this government's move to develop relationships, to deepen relationships with the continent by the setting up of embassies or high commissions in, well, setting up of formal diplomatic relations and diplomatic presence in Ghana and in Kenya speak to a government that is intent on doing all that it can to address the psychological damage that has been inflicted on us. And I think for that, Mr. Speaker, this government must be applauded for, in some respects, going against the grain, going against what is popular to do what is right. And I place a premium on doing what is right, not necessarily what is popular. There is also a view, Mr. Speaker, and I've heard this said from the time I was a boy, that Africans don't like Bajans. Now, I'll put it this way, in terms of what my few years of experience in life, not in terms of those relationships, but in life generally, has taught me. If you get on as though you met yourself and that you're better than everybody else, then not many people will like you. I don't think I need to go any further with that. But I will say that due to the efforts of our cultural and commercial attaché in Ghana, I've been able to meet with the paramount chief of Central Region, which includes the Gold Coast, Cape Coast, the city of Cape Coast. I've also been able to meet with the paramount chief of Cape Coast itself. And I've also had the opportunity to meet with the Bishop of Accra, the Accra Diocese of the Anglican Church in Ghana. And I have to say, Mr. Speaker, that when I reach out to my brothers across the ocean, I have felt nothing but love and embrace. As a matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, my experience has been that those who my foreparents left on the continent are very interested in hearing about the journey that we've gone through. I do not believe that they'll be interested in hearing that we feel that we are better than them. But they're interested in the journey. And so when I spoke to the paramount chiefs in those meetings and I spoke to the bishop, they wanted to hear the story. We organized in the season of emancipation 2022, I believe, or maybe 2021, one of those 2 years, we organized a joint church service between the Diocese of Accra in Ghana and the St. George Parish Church. In the planning meeting, Mr. Speaker, I indicated through our cultural attaché that I would want a couple of minutes just to share a little bit about the story of coffee. And when the bishop heard just a little bit of the story, he almost immediately said, that story must get the same amount of time as the sermon. That was the connection that he felt. That was the strength of his desire to understand what the African experience was in the Caribbean and how it was now manifesting itself as we come out of that colonial era. I am saying, Mr. Speaker, in summary, that those on the continent are our kith and kin. I watched when our Prime Minister, Honourable Member for St. Michael Northeast, was the guest of honor at an anniversary celebration, Independence Anniversary celebration in Ghana. And as I watched the cultural presentations, I really thought that I was watching the Royal Tuck Band, that I was watching Dance National Afrique. There are other groups, but I mention those because those have strong connections with St. Peter. But watching the cultural expression, I immediately connected, and I'm sure that everybody who watched immediately connected our expression in Barbados with the expression on the continent, at least in that area of the continent. I'm saying, Mr. Speaker, these are our kith and kin. Now, families fight, but when you're in trouble, it is families that come together to hold one another up. I say that to say that even though they are our kith and kin, there are no two sets of people who will get along perfectly. Twins don't get along all the time. So there's no reason to expect that we will see eye to eye on everything. But family remains family. And the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central spoke to the African Medical Supplies platform. And I want to say to all of us in this honourable chamber, and to those who I represent, and those who all of us represent, that when times get tough, people look out for their own. We recognized during the COVID pandemic, when we were looking for therapeutics, when we were looking for machinery, ventilators, when we were looking for vaccines, those who are not family to us as closely as our brothers and sisters on the continent are, decided that their stuff was for themselves. We were able to leverage our connection with our relatives on the continent and benefit from the African Medical Supplies Platform. The geopolitics of the world in which we live causes us, if for no other reason, to go close to those who are related to us. Because we cannot rely on those who see us as other. We cannot rely, recent history tells us that we cannot rely on those, I'm about to say relationships, but I feel relationships misrepresent what I want to say. Because something as tenuous as that connection, I really do not think can be considered a relationship. So let me use the word connection. Those connections do not stand up when times get tough. And I call on our people, my people, to recognize that we have, with our brothers and sisters on the continent, family and family with resources. Since this morning we had extensive debate on what happens in cyberspace, or what can happen in cyberspace. But one of the benefits of the technology is that from time to time you see clips that speak to our perceptions of Africa versus the kind of development that is happening as we speak on the continent. And so I said that to reinforce the point that we are not talking about a poor continent. We are talking about a bank coming from a rich continent, but a continent that has been very negatively impacted by Europe. And I fully agree with all the sentiments of Walter Rodney. Europe divided, plundered, and underdeveloped Africa. Africa, like the Caribbean, is lifting itself out of hundreds of years of exploitation, racism, all kinds of negativity that has been imposed on the continent and on Africans and people of African descent. And so when we see squabbles, fights, sometimes infighting, we have to contextualize it. We have to understand that these things come from a place of centuries of attempts to dehumanize and to denigrate. And so, Mr. Speaker, I call on us, all of us, to embrace the presence of the Afri-Exim Bank, to recognize that in this world, what we refer to as South-South cooperation, so South-South is roughly geographic, but the north of this world has seen itself over some number of years as the superior side of the world. The South has to come together. And the Afri-Exim Bank in Barbados, but the bank itself, its establishment, but its presence now in Barbados and its pending operation in this country and in the region is tangible evidence of, well, it will become tangible evidence of the efficacy of South-South cooperation. It is important for us to recognize also that we are not able to rely on traditional modes in terms of trade, in terms of financing. We also are not able to rely on traditional partners. We have to embrace new. And Mr. Speaker, I believe if you're going to embrace new, you start by embracing family. And so I want to reiterate that a country that is bold enough to establish diplomatic presence on the continent, a country and a government that is bold enough to take down Nelson and put in its place, as opposed to his place, a monument that speaks to something that is fundamental to African society. Family is a government and a country that is maturing, that is bold, that is intent on doing the right thing, that is intent on taking its people along with it on the journey to reconnecting with our brothers and sisters on the continent. And so, Mr. Speaker, with those few words, I express strong support for the presence of the bank and for the bill before this honorable chamber, which gives effect to the establishing of the Afrexim Bank in Barbados to serve not just Barbados, but to serve what we consider to be the Caribbean civilization, a civilization that has much of its roots on that great continent of Africa. I'm obliged to you.
Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central.
Honourable member, for his contribution. Like him, I look forward to deepening the institutionally, but also at a personal level, sir, our ties between our regions, and to the extent that Barbadians can play an active role given their presence here, I think is as I said before, sir, consequential. We have to fashion a future, sir, that is inclusive. And therefore, if we learned nothing from the pandemic, sir, is that we have to ensure that we work with those, sir, who are prepared to work with you. And therefore, as we know that there are traditional ties and history, long history that in maintaining the status quo, sir, this government is intended to change things for the better for our people, and therefore to the extent that we're able to build greater economic resilience, sir, the rest of the world is working to see how they can get closer to Africa, sir. But they are looking at it from an exploitative perspective, sir. We are working together collaboratively, sir, to be able to build each other up. And I think that as the bank establishes its footing here, sir, physically in Barbados, but in the sense of the presence in the region, they've already started having missions, sir, actively with other parts of the region that have signed on to the partnership agreement, sir. And therefore, I can only implore Barbadians, sir, to avail themselves, sir, of the information and the opportunities that exist. And we really have to make things happen, sir. And in making things happen, we bring along, sir, 2, 3 people with us to be able to recognize that the scale of operation, sir, within the context of the African market, sir, is considerably different to that of anything that we know in Barbados or indeed the region. But there is certainly, sir, lots of scope to scale up anything that we are doing in Barbados. As you know, sir, cola tonic, which is a lovely drink, sir, comes from the cola nut, sir, in Ghana. And that is an export, sir, that I know that specific entity intends to scale up, sir, which is something that just one opportunity, sir, in terms of something that is already in the marketplace that just requires no additional scaling up to be able to do. Our expansion, sir, within the context of rum in Barbados, sir, will require investment, and I see great opportunities there, sir. Not that I want to get people on the continent drunk, sir, but if they're going to get drunk anyway, sir, let it be, sir, good old Bajan rum, sir, that is doing the job. But the reality is, sir, there are opportunities, and therefore Bajans rather than hope that something happens, sir, rather than wait for some other intervention to take place, we are putting the puzzle pieces together, sir, to be able to fashion that future for our people. And certainly, sir, with the good work that was started by the member for St. James South in terms of the financial literacy within that work, sir, these are the kinds of things in terms of matching people together to do the right deal, sir, at the right time, to be able to unlock opportunities, sir, for our people. And lastly, sir, you know that the credit union movement, just last week, sir, I met with representatives from the Ghanaian cooperative movement that was here to sign a memorandum of understanding with our our credit union movement, sir, to be able to see how they can leverage, sir, investment, given that we have built a very strong and robust and vibrant credit union sector over the last 40 to 45 years, sir. And therefore, as we work together to unlock investment and to be able to deliver for our people, that cooperative spirit, sir, as I walked into the room, sir, I certainly felt as if I was walking in, sir, amongst brothers. And the director addressed me as brother, because as far as he was concerned, he was just in a meeting with his people back in Ghana. And therefore, I feel, sir, not just a sense of solidarity, but I believe, sir, real optimism, real hope with respect to us being able to make things happen quickly, but we must resolve in ourselves, sir, that we will not allow, sir, detractors, misinformation, and all of those things, sir, that have been fed to us to be able to deter us, sir, from being able to do what we have to do. But, sir, let me thank you for the opportunity to bring this bill to this chamber, to have this debate this evening, and to say to Bajans, to say to CARICOM citizens that we have it within us, sir, to be able to work collaboratively, constructively with our brothers and sisters from Africa across the region on strategic things, sir, in order for us to be able to build greater economic resilience in the region, to deliver shared prosperity, sir, for our regions, and to be able, sir, to do what Marcus Garvey wanted to do, sir, over 100 years ago, that this is an opportune time, sir, with the right financing, with the right skills, with the right opportunities available to us, to be able, sir, to deliver on that promise of being able to truly enfranchise our people with a mechanism for ownership to allow us to be able to deliver. And so, sir, with those very few words, I beg to move, sir, that this bill be read a second time.
Second.
The question is that this bill be read a second time. All those honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that you do not leave the chair and the House resolve itself into committee for further consideration of this bill.
The question is that the Speaker do not leave the chair and the House resolve itself into committee for further consideration of this bill. All those honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
Clauses 1 and 2.
Chair, I beg to move that clause 1 and 2 stand apart.
Second.
The question is that clause 1 and clauses 1 and 2 stand apart. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Part 2, clauses 3 to 6.
Chair, I beg to move that clauses 3 to 6 stand apart.
Second.
The question is that part 2, clauses 3 to 6 stand apart. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Part 3, clauses 7 to 11.
Chair, I beg to move that part 3, clauses 7 to 11 stand apart.
Second.
The question is that part 3, clauses 7 to 11 stand apart. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Joe.
Chair, I beg to move that the first schedule be the first schedule to the bill.
Wait, second.
The question is that the first schedule be the first schedule of the bill. All honorable members in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
The second schedule.
Chair, I beg to move that the second schedule be the second schedule to the bill.
Wait, second.
The question is that the second schedule be the second schedule of the bill. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Chair, I beg to move that you do not report His Honor the Speaker the passing of one bill in committee.
Wait, second.
The question is that I do not report to His Honor the Speaker the passing of one bill in committee. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
The chairman of committees is reporting the passing of one bill in committee. Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this bill be read a third time.
Wait, second.
Question is that the bill be read a third time. All those honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this bill be now passed and cited as the African Export-Import Bank Act 2024.
Wait, second.
Question is that the bill be passed and so cited. All those honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it. This bill is passed and so cited.
Order number 10, sir. In the name of the Honourable Minister in the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs, to move the second reading of the Barbados Revenue Authority Appeals Tribunal Validation Bill 2024.
Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central.
Mr. Speaker, in the time that I have available to me, no, seriously, sir. This bill is validation, sir, with respect to the operations of the Barbados Revenue Authority Appeals Tribunal. As you are aware, sir, the Revenue Authority was established in 2014, sir. And at that time, the tribunal was set up with a chair. Now, the operations and this is one of the things that we found in relation to our legislative review, sir. So during the practice of the operation of the tribunal, sir, the chairman effectively, sir, with the permission of the ministry and the minister, delegated, sir, for subcommittees, if you like, sir, of the tribunal to be able to look at very specific cases. And subsequently, the deputy chairman was appointed to be able to do that. And suffice it to say, sir, the operation of the tribunal is such that with the specificity of specific cases, sir, as was constituted at the time, not all appeals, sir, would have been adjudicated, sir, under the auspices of the chair. And therefore, we want to be able to give the legality, sir, the validation, if you like, with respect to the operation of the tribunal having been properly heard, given the fact that for whatever reason, the chair may not have been able to adjudicate given any specific interest in relation to said matters. And therefore, the decisions in relation to the operation of the tribunal properly heard is what the amendment bill is given effect to in relation to the matters that were adjudicated, sir, prior to us coming to office and since then. Now, the reality of it is, sir, is that a number of, as you would appreciate, sir, taxpayers often object to whether it's valuation exercised by the revenue authorities, sir, a range of issues, whether procedural or otherwise, especially in terms of assessments in relation to various tax matters. And the BRA tribunal is intended, obviously, to be able to resolve said matters in relation to that. And to the extent that we are in a position to not just address the fact that a deputy chairman was appointed by legislation and by order last year. The reality is that and as you, just to remind members, sir, that the appointment of members to the tribunal, the minister may by instrument in writing subject to subparagraph 2, appoint as members to the tribunal such numbers of persons being not less than 5 who appear to the minister to be qualified and experienced in law, tax, accounts, public administration, or such other area as in the opinion of the minister is required for the discharge of the function of the tribunal. And the minister may appoint a member to be chairman of the tribunal and another member and another to be deputy chairman of the tribunal. And therefore, those amendments that were agreed by order in 2023 really, sir, is to be able to ensure that, as I said, sir, as the tribunal function, that there is no issue in relation to those decisions that were done by the deputy chair, and therefore to give the validation, sir, with respect to the operations of the tribunal, even though the legislation spoke to the chair, operationally, obviously, because you needed to be able to have that process for governance settled. This is really just to give effect to the operations of the tribunal in order to be able to settle those matters. So the reality of it, sir, is that this is a very simple and straightforward validation clause which will validate the operations of the tribunal. There's a chair, there's a deputy chair, and as things arise, people will excuse themselves as appropriate, sir, with respect to those things, and therefore, within the context of that, we believe, sir, that this now will be able to put on a legal footing, sir, all of the operations in relation to how the tribunal operates. And so, sir, with those very few words, I beg to move, sir, that this bill be read a second time.
The question is that this bill be read a second time. All those honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that you do not leave the chair and the House resolve itself in the committee for further consideration of this bill.
Second.
The question is that the Speaker do not leave the chair and the House resolve itself into committee for further consideration of this bill. All those honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
This Honourable House is now in committee.
Clause 1.
Chair, I beg to move that clause 1 stand part.
The question is that clause 1 stand part. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Aye. Honourable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 2.
Chair, I beg to move that clause 2 stand part.
The question is that clause 2 stand part. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Aye. Honourable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Report.
Chair, I beg to move that you do not report to His Honour the Speaker the passing of one bill in committee.
The question is that I do not report to His Honour the Speaker the passing of one bill in committee. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Chairman of committees is reporting the passing of one bill in committee. Honourable member for Christchurch East Central.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this bill be read a third time.
Second.
Question is that the bill be read a third time. All those honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this bill be passed and cited as the Barbados Revenue Authority Appeals Tribunal Validation Act 2024.
The question is that this bill be passed and so cited. All those honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. This bill is passed and so cited. Honourable member for Christchurch. Honourable member for St. Joseph.
Mr. Speaker, I am proposing that we adjourn until the 13th of February, but I don't know what your member. Mr. Speaker, with that, we've come to the end of our business for today. Let me thank members for their cooperation and for graciously entertaining our young guests. From what I've heard, we certainly left a good impression on them. Beg to move that we do now adjourn, Mr. Speaker, until Tuesday, 13th of February, until 10 a.m. in the morning.
The question is that this House be adjourned until Tuesday, the 13th day of February 2024 at 10 a.m. in the forenoon. All those honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. This honourable chamber stands adjourned until Tuesday, the 13th day of February 2024 at 10 a.m. in the forenoon.